What's up everybody, Jack Farr here on behalf of Box to Box Football, and I'm coming at you with some transfer grading today. Now, I know we're in the midst of the Euros and obviously kind of the transfer market in club football is certainly on the back burner, but that doesn't mean that moves aren't currently being discussed or have already happened. And what I wanted to do today is just give you a couple reflections, reactions and some grades on four of the more major deals that have happened over the last few months or so. Guys, please be sure to hit like and subscribe as well on the video. It just helps us with the YouTube algorithm and it will just help build the community a little more. Hopefully we'll get our videos suggested in some other news feeds. So we would really appreciate if you do hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. So, first of all, starting us off, and this was one hell of a blockbuster when it happened. There was a lot of interest in this defender from nearly all major clubs across European football. Upamecano from RB Leipzig to Bayern Munich for £38.25 million. Now, the way I look at this guy has huge upside, huge upside. The beauty, I think, of Upamecano is, to use some American parlance, he has a very high ceiling, so his potential is very high, but his floor is also very high. Like, if Upamecano doesn't really work out at Bayern Munich, he will still be actually a very good player for them. Maybe not a starter, but maybe he could fulfill kind of a Niklas Süle type role in this Bayern Munich team as potentially while they look for another kind of star player that they're looking for. He has absolutely all the physical traits you would want. He's a very good passer, comfortable on the ball, and that's only going to develop more and more moving from a team like Leipzig to a team like Bayern Munich, who are always going to absolutely dominate. I think the real beauty in this transfer is he's moving with his manager, right? The manager where he's had all this success, Julian Nagelsmann, he is going to be the new coach with him at Bayern Munich, and that means absolutely everything for him and his development. He'll know exactly what's required of him. He'll fit in nice and easily with what the manager wants. And that, to me, it makes absolutely perfect sense. On top of the fact that there's a huge sell-on fee due to his age. And in terms of the price, £38.25 million, that's well below kind of value that if there wasn't that release clause in place, they'd probably be able to charge upwards of 50 to 60 million pounds. This is a future French international, unless something horrific happens. Let's be perfectly honest. So in terms of a grade, it's really difficult here for me not to give an A+. It's got absolutely everything I would want out of a transfer. The great upside, the sell-on fee, the actual player is good, bought at a good value, can develop, etc. And then he has the comfort of remaining within the same league, within the Bundesliga, which he knows, and going to a team which is an upgrade, but with the coach that had him kind of overlooked all of his success. So massive deal for Bayern Munich, and I'm not going to lie, when I heard the news on that, it was really boring. It was boring, but if I was Upamecano's agent or an advisor in any description, Bayern Munich is exactly the club I would tell him to go to. So shut my mouth, right? Moving on to the second of the four transfers we're going to look at and grade today is Ibrahima Konaté, who is also moving from RB Leipzig, but not to Bayern Munich. He's going to be moving to Liverpool for £36 million. Now, there's a lot of similarities between Konaté and Upamecano, but then the differences really do have quite a lot of impact, in my opinion. So, again, huge upside. Young player, plenty of time to kind of develop and become a better player. Very high ceiling, much like Upamecano, but I am a little bit worried about the floor of a player like Konaté. If things don't work out so well, I can see him being kind of lost in the shuffle somewhat, and I wonder if it wouldn't have been best for his own development to remain at RB Leipzig for another year. But obviously you can never turn down the chance to go to Liverpool and play under Jurgen Klopp. He's very comfortable on the ball. He's a very good passer. If I try and get into the negatives a little bit, he's a young man, right? He's 22. He's moved from France to Germany and then to England, all at the age of 22. That does potentially concern me a little bit. Last season, I believe he only had 14 appearances in the Bundesliga, so he really wasn't as available, didn't play as many games. Obviously, this is kind of during, COVID and fans not being there. It's all very it's just all very weird. At a very key time in a player's development, he did not play as often as I would have liked him to sanction a bid of £36 million. yes, he has got the sell-on value part, with his young age, especially if he develops. This is a future France international if the development continues as it will. And also, and this is the main thing where I've basically put him up kind of a whole letter grade because of this. Yeah, Virgil van Dijk. If you're playing with Virgil van Dijk, your risk of not doing very well certainly gets very, very limited. You're playing with arguably the best central defender in the world right now, especially, once he comes back from injury, let's be clear. But there is huge upside on that part, and I think Liverpool certainly made the right decision not going ahead with Ozan Kabak. So for me, this is a B. I think we have to, if we're comparing it to, if 2.25 million extra were to get you Upamecano, and I know that Liverpool probably offered that, and Upamecano just picked Bayern ahead of Liverpool. I think the 36 mil for kind of similar prices being paid, but one player is clearly far better than the other. I just think it's a little bit of a loss there, and also it's that kind of constant moving at such a young age in a position like a defender, and not having played too much last season would worry me ever so slightly. But saying that, I do have a lot of faith in the kid, and he does have a huge upside. So a B grade there for me. Ibrahima Konaté from Leipzig to Liverpool. Next up, and we have Emiliano Buendia from Norwich City to Aston Villa Football Club for £34.56 million. Now, I think this is one of the more fascinating deals, especially within this video where we're only looking at 4 players, but just certainly in terms of where we are in the landscape of football right now. If it's to believe to be true, I don't think Arsenal were willing to go ahead and try and match what Aston Villa were trying to do to secure a player like Emi Buendia. And that is just very, very interesting, because it will be really cool to kind of see where Arsenal are at in terms of their position within the football market with the players that they can potentially attract. What can we say about Emi Buendia? Championship Player of the Year last year, 14 Man of the Match appearances last season, easily Championship's best player. The thing I like about this, he's 24, he's already accustomed to life in England, which I really like, especially for a South American player, an Argentinian player. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a shock to the system a lot of the time. He's got a great goal threat and a great assist threat as well, hovering right around kind of the mid-teens for goals and assists, and I think that a really good year for him, especially in this Aston Villa team, will be double-digit goals, double-digit assists. That would be a fantastic first year for Buendia. With that age, and similar to Konaté and similar to Upamecano, there is that sell-on value as well, which obviously we really like when we're looking at players and bringing players in, because it's all well and good bringing in a great player who might be 30 or 31, but then in the future that money's kind of been thrown down the drain if you can't then get any sort of money back for the player, especially if you develop them. One thing I really like about Emi Buendia is his availability. 39 appearances last year. If you look back historically at the teams he's played for, he plays the vast majority of the games. There really is kind of a limited injury history for him there. It's a bad season for him is probably going to be in the high 20s for games. And in a 38-game season, that's still pretty good if we're being honest. I also like the fact he's moving to a team. He's not going to be too overawed, right? Playing for Norwich, playing in the Championship, I think it's kind of, you can do the big fish, small pond type thing, right? But then I think that there's always a risk. If you move to a top team, it can just be a little too much for some players. What I like about this is it's another kind of stepping stone. And if Emi Buendia plays great over a 2 or 3 year period, he'll be 27 or so. Maybe he can then get a big move, and I'm sure that would be his dream, to play one of the kind of elite tier clubs. No disrespect to Aston Villa, of course. The other thing I really like about this deal, it's great business, because if Jack Grealish moves on within the next 18 months, right, and he's going to have his suitors, let's be honest, from the top teams across Europe, they're not going to be held hostage. The beauty now is that if Jack Grealish leaves the club, you potentially have another kind of icon, another talisman already set up in your team in Emi Buendia. So I really, really like that. I'm very excited for Ollie Watkins. I'm a huge fan of his. And with Jack Grealish and Emi Buendia playing behind you, I think he's going to get some serious service of the upcoming season. Maybe a fantasy player to look out for, Ollie Watkins, perhaps. In terms of a grading, yeah, an A-. The one negative I really have about the deal is... £34.56 million for a Championship player. Yes, it was the best Championship player, no doubt about it. And that team are now a Premier League player. So you could even argue that really you're signing a Premier League talent there. Just a little much for me. just a little much. I would probably value somebody like Buendia right around the kind of 25-30 mark. And yes, you could argue, well, it's only 5 million more, what's the big deal? If he doesn't play so well, or he does get an injury or something, it does just raise some question marks. But that was the only thing preventing it from being kind of a full A or A plus kind of signing. But there are lots of things which I really, really like about that deal. Finally, we are going to make a little trip over to Milan in Italy, and we're looking at Fikayo Tomori from Chelsea to AC Milan for £26.25 million. I love this deal. I really do. And I hate it more for Chelsea and I love it more for Milan. I hate it much more for Chelsea though, trust me. Fikayo Tomori came in and he's basically come in and just kicked out Alessio Romagnoli, right, who's been somewhat of a golden boy in times over in Italy, and certainly I think that he and some people around him would have had aspirations for him to be, starting for the national team and winning Serie A titles and doing all this kind of stuff, but he kind of kicked him to the curb nice and sharpish, established himself really as one of these kind of top 10, I'd argue even top 5 defenders, even over his short loan spell in Italy. It's unbelievable value. You got the sell-on fee there. If I were England manager, this guy's a future England international, potentially a starting central defender, maybe next to somebody like a Ben White, who knows. Huge upside in terms of his development as well, because we know he will get game time in Italy as well. Also, the thing I notice as well, and that I really like about this deal, a team that are in financial trouble, and we know that a team like Milan are at the moment, a lot of the bigger teams are, but especially a lot of the Italian teams are, you need to make good investments and good deals. This is the exact kind of deal where if Tomori has kind of a breakout year and Milan maybe make top 4 again, or if they can sign the right players, maybe, you never know, if they can make a title push like we kind of saw last season as well, then this is the kind of guy who could double in value over the course of a year. And as a British, international and an English Canadian, I believe are his two citizenships, that's a guy who could easily, even next year, come back to England, come back to another team for 50 or 60 million. So to spend 26.25 million on somewhat of a proven commodity who's only going to get better, great deal. In terms of his play style and what he's like, he's a proper defender, really good shot blocker, really good tackler. He is comfortable on the ball, though. He's a comfortable and, very competent passer. And yeah, like I kind of mentioned before, this is a huge mistake on Chelsea's behalf, letting them slip through their fingers. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. I know I've been kind of overly positive on these videos, but really on these transfers, but really I look at all these deals and I think they are pretty good so far. Let me know what you think. Are any of my grades harsh, maybe too positive, maybe I'm being too nice? Let me know what you think, and until next time, we'll see you.